In this video, I'm going to show you how betting in the place market using Place Lane Multi, an automated betting service at Exponential Bet, could make you a very healthy tax-free profit, with the potential to earn circa 10k per annum using a reasonable stake amount and acceptable level of drawdown. This is based on 46.5 months betting and is of course an average, not a guaranteed annual income. However, this is a genuine betting strategy that operates using licensed Betfair software and is designed to automate all the bets placed for members to leave running online once set up and requiring no daily input. In this video, you'll find out how the strategy works, what performance you can expect over the months and years to come, and at the end of the video, you should have enough information to decide if this betting strategy is right for you. Let's begin by looking at the live published betting results for members who follow Place Lane Multi from December 2020 to September 24. The selection filters in operation over this timeline are no longer in place. I have instead replaced them from the 16th of September with updated selection filters and will explain the difference with the expected return on investment in this video. You can see the stats recorded for Place Lane Multi in the screenshot here, and across the 46.5 months betting, 609.78 point profit were accumulated at 1 minute to post time. However, it's exchange betting, so there is variance with that from member to member, and I will cover that later on in this video. The profit and loss graph over time is shown at the top, with the drawdown across the same timeline showing below it. The drawdown figure reached was minus 67.10. Now, what is drawdown? I get asked quite often, and the easiest way to explain it is drawdown is a measure of how much an investment has declined from its peak value before recovering. The drawdown is a risk factor for any investor to consider. Before deciding to start any betting strategy, you should understand the history of it, how it performed over the past year, recently, and over as wide a timeline as possible. I will give examples of performance with the new selection filters today, betting direct to the exchange, minutes to post, or if using Betfair starting price, covering the pros and cons of each betting style. These are the minutes to post results across the same timeline with the new settings. You can immediately notice the points returned are lower than with the previous settings. This rationale will be fully explained, but you can also see the drawdown is a lot lower than the minus 67. With it at just 9.93 across 46.5 months. Now, the reason the points total is lower is for a couple of reasons. There are, of course, visibly less bets, but the important figure to note is the average odds, and it's a lot lower than it was previously. This means we're aiming for a different end of the market, the top 3 to be precise at the time of selection, and as such we will lose more bets, but when we win, the rewards are far higher. You can see from the steadier line of profit and loss, and with the lower, easier to absorb drawdown, that this is a definite advantage. In comparison to the previous settings, the P&L line, which has a lot more ups and downs and of course steeper drawdown periods, which are of course there to see when looking at the drawdown graph. The average odds as stated using the older settings was definitely higher. The average shows a 3.23. But allowing for variance, the actual settings allow for bets up to odds of 6. The higher factoring in the software offset. This means betting fixed stake at minutes to post like this could at a time put a lot more money at risk than we would ideally like to have in the market. Now, I mentioned variance earlier and that I would come back to it. However, firstly let me show you the results for the new settings using BSP, which is Betfair starting price, for you to compare to the older higher odds setup and the new filters using exchange straight minutes to post. Now, the first thing you may notice when we look at the BSP results for the new filters is the points total is higher than with MTP, which is one of the unique benefits of using BSP with lower odds strategies. However, you will also notice the drawdown is higher as well, which is due to the fact these bets are at fixed liability, and as such not getting the benefit of the lower liability for bets below evens that you do get with minutes to post betting. Now, I think this would actually be a good time to come back to variance with results from member to member and actually report it on site and give you some examples. Higher odds bets, especially in the place market where the liquidity is a lot less anyway compared to the win market, there is very low volumes of money available on these horses come time to place member bets. Now this causes drift in price as we are laying, and as such variance with what one member achieves next to another and the reported results. So if betting exchange straight minutes to post using the old settings for place lay multi, this is something that needs factoring in. This is the biggest issue with the service as it's grown, with the difference in reported results on what each member achieves since day one betting, and something that is now largely fixed with the new settings, up to a max stake level of course. Now obviously that means that you need to have a max stake level in there, otherwise you will consume the exchange market with just a few bets, because there really isn't a great deal of liquidity there. So there will still always be some variance even with the lower odds selections, but without those higher odds horses causing massive drifts, the fact that the top three within the betting markets are fancied horses to actually place, that is actually where the money is in the market as the main focus. So the variance in reported results for exchange betting and what each member achieves that decides to bet this way instead of BSP will now be far less noticeable. So let's briefly move over to Betfair for a moment, and I'll give you a couple of examples of what I mean regarding fixed stake and fixed liability BSP betting. So if you're deciding to bet using exchange rate at 1 minute to post, there are some advantages and disadvantages compared to using BSP, and vice versa. Fixed stake when betting on lower than evens horses means less liability on the bet, but the same equal point value return on the bet no matter the odds should it win. However, if it loses a higher than evens odds, you of course will lose more money. You can see in the example I've set up here in this randomly selected race where I've changed the lay odds to the average lay odds for place lay multi for the new setup, and the liability is less than the stake, but the profit is the stake amount, i.e. fixed stake. If the odds were over evens as mentioned, the liability would be higher, but the stake would still be fixed. So the advantage being lower liability on lower odds horses, and disadvantage being higher liability on higher odds horses when betting fixed stake. But the overall benefit is whatever your stake is, this is what the win is on the winning bets. So that's something that is quite easy to track and manage, of course. Now the example shown here on Betfair is a fixed liability bet, i.e. BSP. And you can see now the liability on the bet is the same, the fixed liability, but the profit is actually higher because it's a below evens bet at 1.68. So you're going to be making over £14 profit, and your stake is going to be £10 in that scenario. So fixed liability betting, which if betting using BSP has to be the case because of the Betfair rules, and to a minimum of £10 for laying at BSP. So this means your stake is your liability no matter the odds as shown. So the lower the odds of the horse, the more you win. If it's below evens, you win more than your stake amount with fixed liability. If it's above, you win less than your stake amount. You compare these to fixed stake and fixed liability. As I mentioned earlier, there's pros and cons with each. So the benefit being with fixed liability is you're in control of that stake amount. There's no surprises. You're always going to know what the bet amount is, and if the odds are high on the bet compared to fixed stake, it doesn't matter. You're still going to be betting the same amount, but you're going to be winning less. So to summarise, the minimum odds range for place lay multi using the new settings is 1.15 and the maximum is 2.2, but there will be some variance of course with the system offset in place. However, it will be minimal because of how it was previously compared to how it is now, which is a hugely positive difference for the strategy to have the lower odds. And you can see it shows a profit keeping to these rules over time, even more with BSP. So you can bet MTP, exchange trades, or you can bet BSP or fixed liability within the software. You've got three options there. Fixed liability, no BSP, means you can bet below the Betfair minimum, but you are betting direct to the exchange, so you have to take that into account. You're not always going to be matched at the same price, so the variance will apply. Now, as you can see here, you've got the drawdown, the same average odds showing for both options, for MTP and for BSP. It's around about the same. not the drawdown, the average odds. The drawdown obviously is a lot lower for MTP betting, but as is the points is going to be lower as well for MTP betting. So what we want to do is look over the timeline for both options, for MTP and for BSP. And here you can see on the graph for minutes to post, you have a period of time here where the balance is moving up. But if you look at it for BSP over the same timeline, it's quite a period. I think it's from July up until sort of mid 2024 before it takes off. For BSP, it doesn't move. Whereas for MTP, you can see there that it does actually go up. So the performance will differ as well. It's not just the returns. You can have periods of time where you're betting, and if you are betting BSP, your balance may not be moving. Whereas if you are betting MTP, the balance will be going up incrementally. But again, there are pros and cons to this, which I will cover in a bit more detail. So during this period of time, though, if you're betting BSP, you may be thinking, what is the point? I'm going to quit. I bet from this period to this period, and I've made no money. I spent all my time and my money invested into this project, and I've made no profit. Whereas if you're betting MTP, you'd be thinking, fine, yeah, the balance is moving up at a steady rate. It's no problem for me. I'm making a bit of money. But it's relative. Overall, you are going to be making more money with BSP with a higher drawdown, but you can have different betting periods to contend with as well. And also, different amounts of money. Because if you are betting MTP, you can really only bet with up to, say, I'd say a maximum stake around about 10, 20 quid. Don't go over that with MTP, because you're going to be compromising the liquidity for everybody else who are betting MTP as well. And you're also going to struggle to get matched. You're going to be causing more variance. And if you are betting over a tenner anyway, you're better off just using BSP as the option and just going with it. Because if you can afford that much, you know overall you're going to be making more profit with BSP, even allowing for the fact that there are going to be periods of no profit. But overall, you will make more money with BSP. And if you are betting, as I said, that amount of money, why not? Whereas with MTP, if you're betting 20 quid, 10 quid, less, even like 10p, couple of quid, you know, fine. Then it's just to stick to MTP and you'll have a different experience. You'll have the lower drawdown. You won't make as many points, but maybe you can build the balance up. And then at some point, when you've got more in the kitty, you can then switch over to BSP. If you are betting BSP, though, of course, there is the advantage that the reported odds on Timeform and Betfair, and obviously on site, they will match your results exactly. And that is a great draw for anyone that's looking to start a betting strategy, because I know for a fact, after speaking to a lot of members, there is some frustration when we were using the old strategy with the odds being higher and everyone getting different odds and matched at different prices, and then the results would go up and I would get a series of emails asking me why their results are different than mine. And that's why, because the variance and it's exchange betting and it was set to higher odds. But now, obviously, as I mentioned earlier, with the lower odds and the lower average odds they're showing, the variance will be a lot less anyway. So that is going to solve most of it, but still not going to solve all of it. So with BSP, you are guaranteed to get the exact matched odds, and you can bet, you know, hundreds of pounds if you want stake per bet, and they're going to get matched. Whereas with MTP, if it's going on the exchange, there's no guarantee you're going to be matched at that. You're going to suck up the market for everybody else. It's going to not really going to be any point doing that. So you'd be better off with BSP. And also as well, I've created it now, a strategy that is actually more profitable for BSP. So there is more of a draw to that, as well as getting the reported odds of what goes on Timeform, Betfair, and is published on site. So it kind of makes more sense. For the people who want to bet more, use BSP. For the people who want to bet 10 quid and less, you've got MTP there. Or fixed liability, which is, you know, even the same sort of odds range of results where you're getting more money, and you like the way fixed liability is because it's a fixed stake amount, as in it's a fixed amount per bet, it's a fixed liability, and maybe you like that. aspect of it, and you're happier with the that there is going to be a higher drawdown, but overall you prefer fixed liability betting. So bit of a ramble there, off piece, but what I want to do now is look at how all of this translates financially, because at the moment you're looking at this as a 1 point per bet scenario. So let's look at this from BSP and also minutes to post, and translate that into how that can earn you money, and we'll look at it as an average income, because obviously 1 month, 1 year isn't going to be the same as the previous year, but we'll work it out as an average for BSP here and for MTP, and we'll look at these periods as well on the timeline where there's been money made for one strategy and not for another, as in money made for MTP and not for BSP, and we'll go over the timeline and see how that actually looks, so you know what to prepare for these particular types of betting periods. So I will try to make this as straightforward as possible, and let's start with BSP. And looking at the stats for BSP and the performance, if we break this down and say that over 46.5 months betting, that equates to 8.64 points on average a month. So if we say we're betting with £10 stake per bet, that's your 1 point. So 1 point is £10. So that comes to an average of £86.40 per month profit average. As I said, that's not going to be every month, because you can see from what I was talking about a minute ago, there'll be lines on the graph that show periods of no profit, just breaking even or loss. But on average over that timeline, that is the average, £86.40 per month. So if we times that by 46.5 months, that is £4,017.60p profit, betting £10 at BSP stakes per bet. That's hands-off betting with only a drawdown of minus 17.61 points, as you can see, which is £176.10p to contend with over that timeline for the money that you've put in. Now, if you bet in with more, of course, it's going to have returned more. As an obvious example, say we move up to £100, so that's £100 stake per bet, you would have returned £40,176. Now, given the average point return, that's £10,368 over a 12-month period. So that's the average. That's not a guaranteed regular annual income with the results that show. However, that is the average if betting 1 point per bet with a value of £100 per bet using Betfair starting price, which you would have been matched at the actual recorded odds. The average over the 12-month period is £10,368 if betting £100 at 1 point per bet. And as said, because that is BSP, that's what we'd all show over that timeline. And it will be over the full timeline £40,176. And with BSP again, you can bet, over £100 per bet, and you're going to be matched, and it will be recorded at the same odds on Timeform, Betfair, and what we publish online. Of course, I show I show up the results at 1 point per bet. So let's move over and do the same analogy for minutes to post. Looking at these then, side by side to BSP, if we look at MTP, the monthly average is 5.61 points. So that equates to £56.05 average monthly income if betting £10. And like I said, I wouldn't recommend betting over this. If you are, use BSP. So for MTP, that's £56.05 average per month, which over the 46.5 months equates to £2,606.60. So just so you know, as an example, don't do this. The £100 stake per bet at MTP would be £26,086.50. So why would you do that when you could use BSP, and then you'll want all your bets matched at 100% recorded odds. So now £2,606.60 over 46.5 months may not seem much, or even £4,017.60 of betting BSP over the same period. But take a step back. This is fully automated betting. You would have left that money in over the time and not had anything to do with it. Minimal volatility to consider and worry about. The money has literally developed over that time, and compared to how a stock or share or crypto, for example, would have developed, with all the risks that are entailed with that, that your share value can absolutely plummet to nothing, or crypto could plummet to nothing. With this instead, the stake is going in, the bets are being placed over the time, your money isn't going to devalue, but obviously the performance will change, which we've seen that over the timeline compared to MTP and BSP. There will be varying performance levels, and there'll be periods where you're not making money for maybe 6 months. So you have to factor that in, just like with a stock or share or crypto. You'd have to factor in that there'll be periods where the value would go down before it would then hopefully go up. But from an investing point of view, this is actually a very good hands-off investment. The drawdown, as you can see there, compared to the growth, is actually very decent and quite manageable. So taking into account the risk of investing, tolerance to risk levels, etc., you need to assess what kind of amount, or if this is right for you. You could just turn this video off and walk away. Maybe this is not right for you, the type of betting strategy this is, because I'm going to go and give you some more working examples after this, how it looks specifically over a period of months and years. So you may get to the end of this video or know already that this is not right for you. But if you do take into account the risk of investing, tolerance to risk, etc., there is excellent scope to make quite decent sums of money with this. For those who can tolerate the risk more and have more to put into it, this makes an incredibly appealing investment, especially when you look at that you can bet your £100 upwards using BSP per bet, and those results are going to be logged on Timeform, Betfair and Exponential Bet against your own and match exactly, and your bets are actually going to get matched at those figures. So that money is available for you to put on, where obviously if you bet into the exchange direct, you are liquidity dependent, and it's not always going to be the case. But because of the way that I've reworked the strategy, hopefully this is making sense now, is that I've made it into a strategy that the bigger investor can actually use it and can make excellent money, or someone who wants to start small and build up can actually still use it and build the balance up, and has the option further down the line to transition across and then use BSP as an option then when there's more money built up through profit, and then move that across and use it with a BSP starting balance. So yeah, hopefully that gives you more of a financial insight into what is possible and how you can look at this from, as I said, a financial standpoint, not just looking at it as points per bet, which is how it's recorded on site and how it's shown here in the results. So let me go through and give you some examples of how it looks over a period of time, and then we'll wrap up the video after that point. Staying where we are with MTP, if we look at the last 12 months betting, which is really from the 14th of September 2023 up to the 15th of September 2024, just using that timeline, you can see that there has been good periods of growth, some periods where the balance has taken longer to achieve, times when it's dipped over prolonged periods and then grown up and down all the way, but still over a 12-month period that's a good line of growth, and 46.45 points made profit. So that's good for minutes to post. With the points, that's obviously if you're using the example of £10 per per point. That's £464.50 made over the past 12 months. And looking at drawdown using the £10 example, of course, is £67, and 80p has been the maximum level of exposure over this timeline. You can see that will have occurred around about here. Been more winning than losing days. Average odds still around the same. Wins and losses overall, but we've still made 46.45 points profit over that timeline. Jumping across and looking at 12 months of BSP betting, it is a slightly different story, isn't it? So if we look at this compared to the MTP, yes, there's similar areas where the balance hasn't performed as well, but overall, over the 12 months with BSP, you can see that the drawdown obviously being higher, and the commitment of having that fixed liability as opposed to the luxury of bets that are going to be lower than evens that will lose, but the ones that are, no matter what, your liability is going to be lower overall because given the average odds. Now, with that said, the points gained is still higher and in line with 59.76. So instead of the 464 that was made with MTP, that's £597.60 of betting with £10 at 1 point per bet, with a drawdown of £176.10 over the same time frame instead of the £67 and 80p, obviously sticking to the £10 1 point per bet value. Now, of course, as this is BSP, betting above £10 and up to the £100 example that we used earlier over the same time frame, that's going to be £5,976 made over the past 12 months, from the 15th of September right the way back to the 14th of September the previous year. With the drawdown, the maximum risk over that period would have reached 1,761, which is here. You can see it on the drawdown graph. So that's interesting. That is interesting to see how it can go. And this is the most recent example. You can see over the entire 12-month period for minutes to post and for BSP that there is, of course, some differences. There seems to be more consistency with the drawdown period and less of a spike, with the flexibility of the odds being fixed stake, and obviously the average odds being lower than evens most of the time if you're using MTP. But of course, you're only really going to be betting up to a maximum of £10 stake. Sorry about the ice cream van in the background. And then you have 12 months of BSP, which you have periods of drawdown, but there was quite a significant spike around this time. So I think a good place to jump to now would be quickly look at the last 3 months and then look at these spikes, and also over the 12-month period where it actually leveled out for BSP compared to MTP, and that should give you a good well-rounded opinion on the service. And any questions from then, of course, you can contact me. But before we jump to that, let's have a look at the 3-month period for both MTP and BSP. So staying where we are then, and obviously you understand how the examples work regarding £10 and £100, and you can see there straight away that for BSP you've got 14.26 points profit, and over the past, so there is a profit that's been made over the past few months with a drawdown of 8.64 points. This is for BSP, of course. Now with MTP, the points quite similar, with slightly less drawdown. The drawdown periods, there was a bit of a spike earlier in that time, and that corresponds to BSP betting, of course, because they are the same bets, but obviously one's BSP and one's minutes to post. So really, over the past few months, what this tells us that if you're betting with £10 per point using BSP, that's going to be £142.60 profit that you've made over the last few months. And of course, if you're betting with £100, that's going to come in at £1,426 profit over the last few months, with a very manageable drawdown over that period, allowing for these specific spikes and periods where you're not earning any money. And for minutes to post over the past few months, looking at that with £10 example, which we'll stick to because we really shouldn't be betting more than £10 MTP. That's £104.30 over the past 3 months betting, with 5.01 points drawdown. Again, very, very reasonable sort of trade-off there with the points gained and the drawdown, and all working within very safe, sensible banks. Even if you're using 50 points startup bank, you're still going to be within that, well within that over the past few months. If you're using 200 points, it's not even scratched the surface with no sweat, and made you £104.30 just by leaving this as a hands-off automated betting investment. So let me try and go over this in the easiest to follow, simplest way possible, and looking at the complete overview from 2020 to 2024 for minutes to post betting, place lay multi. And what I'd like to do is look at some of these periods leading up to this section here, which will then compare to BSP as well, because BSP over this time just broke even. So as we look over the graph here, I just click onto this and get an idea where it is on the actual timeline. So that's saying it's at 208. They kind of peaked around about 208. So these are going to be approximates here. We're going to be looking at roughly. The running total that you see here is obviously pulled from this information. If I click on that here, so this is the running total. Yep. And if I look up to what was that, approximately 205, so it's 205-ish. If I come down here, I'll try not to jump around too much because I know it can be jarring. But we look here at the running total, we can see that we're coming in around about 24.31 points, and it starts to lift off from there. So we look at this, we've got December, there's 1 month, and then we go through, and then we've got the 18th of April there. So that's like, what, 5.5 months that we're looking at before we actually started making a decent profit at 24 points that we'd accumulated at that time. But it was just basically, if you look, it was just a lot of up and down where we'd make money and lose money, and the balance would go down. You can see here as I'm going over the numbers. So we sort of reached a point here where it went up to 7 points, 7.18, and then it dropped down again to 2.3, went up, it went down, and this is how the betting can be over a period of time. If you're looking to set up a long-term betting strategy, this is, what did I say, 5.5 months betting, and you're looking at 24.31 points. So previously, where the average over the few months would been say 50 odd points, you can see now why that is the case, because yeah, that was a few months betting and we've made 50 something points with BSP, 40 something points with MTP. But here's 5.5 months betting at the start, which is this bit here, and you're only looking around 24 points. So you've got to get over that idea that it's your normal type of betting system, and you're going to jump in at exactly the right time, and everything's going to be perfect, and you're going to be making money, the exact sort of profit that you want from day one. So you've got to think that there's going to be periods where I'm making no money. I'm going through a period of loss. So this balance went up here, and then it drops down here. So let me go from this point here where we can see that goes up. So the balance is going up, 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 and now you can see that it's actually starting to drop. So we've gone through 5.5 months of betting, and the balance has started to go up and up and up. Then it started to drop and drop and drop and drop, drop, drop. And this is now June. So you've been betting now for 7 months. You've seen the balance go up and you've seen it drop. So what are you going to do? You're going to quit. If you quit now, you are people here at this point cancelling memberships. 100% cancelling memberships. So people cancel the membership there. They think this is an absolute waste of time. Been betting for 7 months. I've made about 20 points profit. The numbers don't add up. It's a scam. It's not going to work for me. My drawdown is, too high or whatever it might be. I'm not making. What's the point in having my money tied up in this when I could be doing something else? I'm never going to make the reported points profit. So people quit here. That's happens again and again, but I've got members that stick at this and stick at it with every bet, and these members then go on, and you see the balance here going up and up and up and up and up, and it keeps going, and then it reaches a point around here where it peaks at 41 points, and that is literally just over a month or so later. So you can see here that the balance is just consistently does that. It goes through periods of winning, and then it'll go through periods where it doesn't win, it loses, for example, and then dips down, and then continues to grow up to the level it is where we finished at 260.66 points profit. Now this bit here where we look at around about this level, which is where on the BSP graph things just middled along and broke even along this sort of line, if you like. So let's zip down there and have a look. What's it saying? 1748. So I'm just going to stop here instead. This is around about where it is on that timeline, just a little bit before. So it's the 16th of August. And we're looking here, and we're made 209.57, and the balance here is more of a gradual, steady increase. We can see the balance is going up and down and up and down, but overall, I'm just going to zip up, so excuse your eyes. But overall, it's increasing. It tapers off a little bit here, where it just middles and breaks even, and then kicks on again from that point. But overall, from here, you can see that right up until where it ends at the 15th of September, there's a bit of up and down with the profit and loss, where it was sort of teetering around the high 120s and 130s, and it'll sort of drop up and down, but then it kicks on, and then we finish at 260.66 points profit. Now, for the people that quit at the 19 points after the 7 months or so betting, I can understand why you would look at that and think, this is just not working, that's not for me. But for the people that stuck at it past that point, and you now have 260.66 points in the bank for whatever stake that you're betting with, say this is MTP, so it's up to 10 quid, so you got your over 2.5 grand in the bank from just leaving that money to run hands-free in the background, fully automated. That's a good investment. If you put that amount of money into a share, you're going to have a lot more risk and exposure. Cryptocurrency, volatile as anything, whatever you put your money into, that is good growth. If you look at the way Ethereum has grown over that period of time, it's a higher growth rate than Ethereum. Ethereum's value is less than this at this moment in time. As I'm talking to you, I think it's about 1,700. So if you made over 2.5 grand from this, putting your £10 per bet with very minimal liability, that is a good investment. And that's how you have to look at automated betting when it's set up, as it is here with my strategies, for long-term returns, because This is a really good example where you've got 7 months of really not doing much, and then it does something and then goes down again and tests your metal. So there's an example, and you can see here how it just consistently grew from this period onwards. So let's take a look at BSP, and we'll have a look at this early period. We know this period's been consistent, and then we'll have a look at this bit that really didn't do much for BSP. So we'll jump over to that now. Okay, so we're looking at BSP now, and this is the same story, of course, from the start. So we'll have a look, which was the up till June, wasn't it? It was initially, but at the start here we have the running total, which I'll just highlight for you to draw the eye. The BSP running total, and very early on you can see that it's in the minus through December, and it's in the minus pretty much until early February, and it takes off a bit and then drops again into the minus. And you know, I'm showing you this so you've got a clear idea of what to expect with the betting flow, because I only want people who understand the betting flow. I don't want people who join and leave and join and leave. I want you to stick at it and actually reap the rewards. So we get into March now, and then the balance is starting to move up, and we're doing well. We're starting to make a profit. See, things are actually starting to lift off. There is wins and losses, so the balance is staying around the 20s. And then you can see here, as we get to around about June, as was before, here we are again, around 19.23 points. And then this is where, as mentioned, people will think about abandoning ship, and that will be it for them. And then the balance lifts off again. You can see it really kicks on. It really hits the 50 odd points mark, and then, as mentioned, from this point on it's quite consistent, really. You've got your wins and losses, of course, from the profit and loss. There's a consistent stream of profit and loss and wins and losses, and the balance kind of staying where it is and then moving up and up and up. But then let's have a look. It was around about August 2023. Okay, so here we are around about August 2023. I'm looking at the running total. And now, from this point, with BSP, there's a period of time over September. And as we drop down here into October, the balance really isn't kicking on, is it? Kind of staying around the same level. So if you've joined around that time, you know your money's been in here for a few months and it's not doing much, and it's dropping and it's staying the same. There you go, it's dropping again. It's sort of middling along. So this is the period you've seen on that graph where it's just not doing much and it's just middling along. And then as we get into February, you see it's still just middling. It's back down to 350s. So this is a long period of time where your money looks like it's not doing much. And it's important to look at this, because when you look at the graph, you go, wow, yeah, steady growth over time. Brilliant. That looks amazing. Count me in. You have 6 months of not doing much and you quit and you miss the profit. And then here we go. You see from this point on, it's kicked on. It's the growth spurt, which I'll show you again. And then we're getting up to the 400 odd points. And there you go, 401, 76 points. So this long period of time was a good old hefty period of months of just staying around the 340s, 350s. 360 point profit. There it is, the 350 there. So we're going up to a sign of 360s and then dipping back down again. And if you joined here, you've gone through a period of loss, got your money back, and then just middled along for that amount of time. And you're going to be here somewhere on the timeline thinking, I might quit. If you do quit, you've missed that. So the point I'm making, very simply, with any of these strategies that I set up for long-term betting investment, you need to have the mindset that will get you through these periods of drawdown and loss, so you can start reaping the rewards of the winning periods that will follow. If you haven't got that mentality, you're not going to get through those months that can come along where the balance is dropping, or it's just middling along and winning and losing and not growing. And then you can see quite clearly this point there that I've highlighted, that people will quit and leave a service, and then the people who stick at it then reap the rewards. So if you haven't got that mindset, this type of betting is not for you, basically. The average results and money made is an average. It's not consistent, guaranteed income every single month, year on year. It varies from year to year, from month to month. Some years will be fantastic, some years will be less profitable. That's just how it goes. As you can see, with this type of betting targeting this end of the market at these odds, it opens up BSP betting, which is absolutely fantastic for members now, because you can jump on and you can put your money in, and the amount of money and odds that you'll get matched that will mirror everybody else's. Everything I publish and Timeform and Betfair will match yours. That's just fantastic. And it also opens up the scope for you to bet a lot higher within the place market, which you never had before, because we were always focused on minutes to post, because the BSP profit, a fixed liability using the original system, was just not really that profitable. Whereas now the BSP betting is more profitable than MTP, which makes it the perfect value proposition for you, because you've got MTP to start with, to test the market, to build a balance, to see if things are right for you, see if you can bet long term, up to say £10 per bet, or anything less down to 10p. You've got the scope to do that. Or you can jump in and obviously go for BSP and bet up to 100 or upwards of 100 at BSP, and your money's going to get matched, which is just brilliant. And hopefully this gives you a good example of what you can expect, what the performance level over the period of 46.5 months has shown, what the recent results have shown the past year, and how the flow of betting can progress over a series of months to give you the best chance of success, to put the right amount of money in and stick at it, and just let this automated betting do what it's programmed to do. So I hope you found that useful. Any questions, just write to me at ryan@exponentialbet.co.uk. You can always email through the site as well, and I do recommend you subscribe to my mailing list at Exponential Bet and stay up to date with all the latest blogs, posts, any YouTube videos. I'll always publish through there and let people know that are subscribed. Okay, thank you for your attention today. I appreciate you watching. Take care.